Silo Season 3, Episode 1 may have just changed the biggest mystery of the entire series. For 2 seasons, we've been trying to figure out why the silos exist. But after watching this premiere, I think an additional question might be, what are the silos actually testing? Because Episode 1 is filled with clues that suggest these underground cities may be much more than humanity's last hope. The evidence is starting to point towards one unsettling possibility. These silos aren't just shelters, they may be experiments. And today, I'm breaking down 5 clues that you probably missed, and I'm showing you how each one may support that theory. I'll also be discussing a few unanswered questions that I have after watching this episode. And don't worry, this video contains no book spoilers because I haven't even read the books yet. But before we get started, let me introduce myself if you're new here. And if you're not new here, then welcome back. My name is Brandy, and I realize that you could be on any channel in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really do appreciate that. So please go ahead and like this video. It really does help the channel out, and I greatly appreciate it. And also subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy watching TV show breakdowns. Now, clue number 1 is the parallel of memory suppression that we saw on this episode. And I know that some viewers are frustrated that Silo is using the memory loss trope, but I think the writers are trying to tell us something. In the present day timeline, we learn that Juliet is being medicated under the guise of taking vitamins to suppress her memories. And by the end of the episode, the algorithm tells Camille to double Juliet's dosage because she is starting to remember things. We even see Juliet's caretaker going from giving her 2 vitamins at the beginning of the episode to 5 by the end. The goal isn't to kill Juliet, it's to keep her from remembering. Now jump to the before times. Charlotte survives that bizarre incident after her F-35 flies through the mysterious cloud. But when Daniel finally sees her again, she doesn't even recognize her own brother. Maybe it's just a traumatic brain injury, or maybe it's another example of memory being taken away after someone learned something they weren't supposed to know. Because Silo has shown us this before. History was erased, relics were banned, entire generations grew up without knowing the truth about the world before the silos. This society has always been built on controlling what people remember. Now think about Juliet and Charlotte and if this is all just one big experiment. In science experiments, once a test subject is exposed to information they weren't supposed to have, they're considered contaminated. It's almost like their memories are being suppressed in order to preserve the experiment while eliminating the dangerous information that they learned. Think about it. Juliet learns about Silo 17 and the secret safeguard procedure. Then she's being given vitamins that chemically suppress her memory. And Charlotte, she witnesses something extraordinary in the sky. Then she loses her memory. And Charlotte was already paranoid about the mission beforehand. But neither woman is killed. Instead, their memories are compromised. And that's what makes me think memory is a threat to the silo. And if this experiment theory is right, maybe the founders were never afraid of rebellion. They were afraid of remembrance. Because a rebellion can be contained, but once people remember the truth, the experiment is already lost. Which leads me to clue number 2. Every silo may be following the same life cycle. Throughout this episode, Juliet, she pauses a few times. She's almost frustrated because she knows she's forgetting something important that she needs to do. She even says she's supposed to remember something important before returning to Silo 18. Now, this episode never tells us what it is she's trying to recall exactly, but if you remember the season 2 finale, before Juliet left Silo 17, Solo told her about the secret safeguard procedure, which is a hidden fail-safe in the form of a pipe on the 14th floor that's capable of releasing poisonous gas that could kill everyone in the silo after a rebellion. So I think that Juliet is trying to recall that she needs to disable the safeguard procedure by maybe capping the pipe, the way Solo mentioned to her that his parents tried to do the same thing in Silo 17 right after the rebellion. But the point I'm trying to make is the founders already had a plan for every stage in the silos. There is a pattern that they are following. And the more I think about this premiere, the more convinced I am that every silo follows this same life cycle. There's the order to preserve control. They have the pact to govern behavior. Judicial enforces the rules. and cleaning to reinforce the official narrative. And finally, the safeguard procedure. And after watching this episode a second time, I am convinced that the safeguard isn't just an emergency system. I think it's the final stage of the experiment, because why would a bunker built to preserve humanity include a built-in way to eliminate everyone inside? Unless the safeguard was obviously never meant to protect the people, it was meant to protect the experiment itself. If one silo reaches a point where it can no longer be controlled, that experiment ends on that particular variable. The data is collected and the other silos continue on with the experiment. And that's why I don't think the founders were ever asking, will there be a rebellion? I think they already knew the answer. The real experiment was watching when the rebellion happened and how it unfolded, who emerged as the leader, and whether that silo recovered or reached the safeguard stage. In other words, the rebellion isn't just the end of the experiment, it's one of its expected stages. And every silo may be following the exact same blueprint. And the next clue is Charlotte ending up at the Heidi Stinson Alzheimer's clinic. Before Charlotte leaves on her mission, she secretly meets with her brother Daniel and urges him to learn everything he can about Senator Thurman's mysterious Iran committee. Charlotte knows something isn't right. Then everything changes when she goes on the mission. Charlotte's F-35 encounters that bizarre phenomenon in the sky, and she's rushed to a hospital with a traumatic brain injury. But here's where things get interesting. She isn't taken to Walter Reed, where she was supposed to go, because that plan was derailed by Thurman. Then Thurman's daughter Anna tells Daniel that her mom pulled some strings and that Charlotte is in the Heidi Stinson clinic in Fairfax. And that feels incredibly specific, because when Daniel finally sees Charlotte, she doesn't recognize her own brother. But now we're seeing this clinic that specializes in diseases of memory. So to me, introducing the world's premier memory clinic right before the silos are built feels like more than just world building. It feels like the origin of that technology. Maybe the Heidi Stinson clinic, maybe it's where humanity first learned how to manipulate memory itself. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Daniel has exactly the background someone would need to help design the silos. And now we know Senator Thurman is interested in him. But what if Thurman never recruits Daniel with power? What if she uses Charlotte as leverage? Daniel has already told us that she's the only family he has. And if someone promised they could help her or restore her memories, how far would Daniel go? Because to me, Charlotte doesn't look like a patient. She looks like the leverage that brings one of the silo's future architects onto the project. And if Daniel really does help build the silos, I don't think it'll be because he believes in the project. I don't really see Daniel as a bad guy at this point. I think it'll be because someone convinces him it's the only way to save his sister. And clue number 4 is Juliet's childhood toy. Now, there's a small scene in this episode in the cafeteria that I almost overlooked, but I think it might become important later on this season. We see Regina, the relic dealer, and also George Wilkins' former girlfriend. She approaches a group of young women to trade relics. And Regina, she appears to have what looks like Juliet's old sheriff's badge, while one of the girls is holding one of Juliet's childhood stuffed animals that came from Pete Nichols' apartment. At first, it just feels like another relic trading scene. But then I started thinking, Juliet has barely been gone. Yet her personal belongings are already being treated like historical artifacts. And that tells me that relics aren't valuable simply because they're old. They're valuable because they preserve memories. The founders, they erased history, they banned relics, and discouraged people from asking questions. Why? Because memories have the power to expose the truth. Which brings me back to Juliet's stuffed animal. I don't think the writers included it by accident. We've already seen Juliet struggling to remember something important throughout this episode. What if this childhood toy becomes the trigger that helps unlock Juliet's memories? We know that familiar objects can bring back memories people thought were lost. A favorite childhood toy, a photograph, even a familiar smell can instantly reconnect someone to their past. And that's why I think Juliet is so intentionally smelling her soup every time that it arrives. She she is trying to trigger her memory as well. So don't be surprised if this little stuffed animal ends up being much more than a relic. It may become the key to helping Juliet remember exactly what the founders are trying so hard to make her forget. And clue number 5 is the new council meeting. Juliet has been back in the silo for only 3 months now, and she may have the title of mayor, but she's clearly just a figurehead. Sims and Camille are still calling the shots. For the first time, Silo 18 creates a council made up of department heads and representatives from different levels. Sims opens up this meeting by saying Bernard kept too many secrets, but now things will be different. Each department head does a report out of the different going-ons on their level. And on the surface, it sounds like progress, but does it really change anything? And why create the council now? I think it's because the experiment has entered a new stage. After every rebellion, people demand transparency. They want to feel like they have a voice. So instead of tightening control, the system changes how it controls them. They give people meetings, they give them reports, they give them representatives, they give them the illusion that they're a part of the decision-making process. But behind closed doors, the real decisions are still being made by the same people. And if my experiment theory is right, this isn't democracy. It's just the next stage of the experiment. And now we'll move on to the question section of this video. My number one question is, why aren't Knox and Shirley and Juliet's friends trying to help her remember more? One moment that really stood out to me was when Juliet asked Shirley for help remembering the important task that she was supposed to complete. And Shirley brushed her off pretty quickly, which felt really out of character. I understand that Shirley might have been emotional. She might have been mourning the loss of her friend, but I was expecting Shirley to try a little bit harder to connect with Juliet. It makes me wonder if something is in the water that suppresses her friends from trying to connect with her as well. And the next question, who slipped the note into Juliet's soup? They are so lucky that Juliet didn't simply just throw the soup in the trash like I would have. But nonetheless, my first thought on who could have written Juliet that note to meet them at the marketplace at 2 p.m. if she wants to know the truth, my first thought was that it's Lucas Kyle. Because I know they said it's a possibility that he's dead, but I don't think so. So that was my first thought, is that it's him. My second thought is that maybe it is Shirley and Knox and her crew from Mechanical trying to reconnect with her and help her bring her memory back. Next question is, who is really in charge between Camille and Sims? I really have a feeling that Camille and Sims are still keeping secrets from each other. Now, Camille, she does seem to have the algorithm's trust, and she isn't afraid to overrule people when she has to. And maybe the real question is Camille the villain? Or does she think that she's trying to protect the silo from going extinct? I'm still not sure of Camille's role. I'm kind of leaning towards she's evil, but at this point, I really don't know. But nonetheless, guys, if you made it this far in the video, please do me a favor and drop me down a green heart below. And as always, let me know what theories you have about Silo Season 3, Episode 1, or the whole series in general. Let me know what clues I might have missed. And also, just let me know what you rate this episode. I would rate it. It was pretty good. I would give it maybe, I don't know, a 7.5 over 10. And also let me know what other shows you're watching at this time. Give me some ideas of other mystery box shows that I can cover. But that's all I have for today, guys. You all stay safe out there. And until I see you next time, peace.